Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you all. A very, very warm welcome on behalf of Center for Sustainable Development of Muslim World UK to this international webinar. The topic we have chosen today for discussion is the role of Zakah as an Islamic social finance tool in realizing SDGs. And we are very much excited of having a renowned panelist from different corner of the world for this session. And we have with us as the chair, Dr. Abu Omar Farooq Ahmed. He is an associate professor of Islamic finance law, King Abdul Aziz University, Jeddah, KSA. And at the same time, he's also the chairman of Center for Sustainable Development of Muslim World UK. I welcome our honorable chair for today's session. Honorable audience, we have with us as the keynote speaker is Dr. Aishath Muneeza. He is an associate professor of INCEIF. It is called International Center for Education Islamic Finance. It is a university in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. She was also a former deputy minister of both Ministry of Finance and Treasury and Ministry of Islamic Affairs, Republic of Maldives. And she played the role as the chairman of Board of Directors, Maldives Center or Islamic Finance Limited. I was the speaker in our studio. We have with us as the guest of honor Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed. He is the chair of Sharjah Chair in Islamic Law and Finance, Business School, Durham University, United Kingdom. We have with us other panelists. We have with us Dr. Mohammed Umur Farooq. He is an associate professor, Department of Economic and Finance, University of Bahrain, Kingdom of Bahrain. We have with us Professor Dr. Mohammed Ruhul Amin. He is the global president, World Muslim Heritage Research Center, USA. We have with us Dr. Abdulnaser Aljasem. He is an associate professor at the Faculty of Economics, Mardin University, Turkey. And we have with us Dr. Nazrul Islam. He is a scientist, USDA from USA. So I welcome all of our honorable guests today in our international webinar. The topic we have chosen today, as I mentioned earlier, that is the role of Zakah as an Islamic social finance tool in realizing Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The potential size of the annual Zakat pool has been estimated between 200 billion to 1 trillion US dollar. And Zakat is much more prevalent than commercial Islamic finance. Elevating hunger, poverty, and inequality, promoting peace, and protecting the environment are central to the core Islamic principles known as the Maqasid al-Sharia. The Quran identifies 8 categories of eligible use for zakah, including helping the poor and needy, refugees and displaced people, and liberating those in bondage. Zakat thus aligns strongly with numerous SDGs, including no poverty, SDG goal 1, zero hunger, SDG goal 2, reduce inequalities, SDG goal 10, and others. Collaborating with zakat donors and administrators reflect the spirit of partnership for the goals SDGs goal 17. It is about much more than mobilizing finance. Zakat and Islamic finance have an underlying philosophy that embodies socially responsible development and is associated with a wide network for organizations crucial for promoting peace, development, and tolerance. So definitely we are expecting a very wonderful discussion next couple of weeks. So at this point of time, I'd like to request our honorable keynote speaker, Dr. Aishath Muneeza, to deliver his keynote speech, please.
Much. Let me share the screen first. Can you share? Can you see my screen?
Yes, 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 perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer, especially the chairman, Dr. Abu Farooq, for giving me this opportunity. And as you know, the topic of discussion today is about the role of Zakah as an Islamic social finance tool in realizing SDGs. So briefly, I would like to look at these areas today. Firstly, the general introduction and how Zakat and SDGs are related. And I would also like to touch briefly on the issues in Zakat administration that we are facing today, while looking at the potential of Zakat as well, and what would be the main key forward or key takeaways from the presentation that we are having today. Now, if you look at the introduction, we know that Zakah is a ibadat matter as well as it falls within the ambit of muamalat, in the sense that it helps the society to get a lot of advantage in terms of having social justice. Now, if we look at how SDGs has started or initiated, we understand that this is a global initiative where a lot of countries participate in it, and it is a global initiative that needs to be fulfilled before 2030. And therefore, countries collectively as well as individually are trying to achieve this target. Even though while we are trying to achieve this target, we understand that COVID has posed more threats to achieve this target, and we are unsure whether we will be able to achieve what we targeted before COVID within the timeline given. Having said so, we also understand that in achieving the SDGs, there is some role which Zakat could play, and that role is potential because it is understood that Zakat is one of the key tools that could be used by the multilateral organizations and the respective countries in realizing the SDGs. More than one goal overlaps with the objective of Zakat, linking it with Maqasid Sharia in the bigger picture. So here are some questions which I would like to pose and which I would like to reflect on. Number one is, what is the potential of achieving SDGs using Zakah? Number two is it allowed in Sharia to link Zakat with achieving SDGs? The final question here is, can we do so within the scope of Sharia parameters applied to Zakah? Obviously, the answers for this question is already seen in the practice of countries in relation to Zakat administration, and today we no longer deliberate or talk about these questions because we understand that definitely Zakah could be linked with SDGs, and in the bigger picture we see Maqasid Sharia, and therefore there is no doubt that there are no disunanimity of views among the Sharia scholars who say that whether we could achieve SDGs or not using Zakat, as long as we are following the Sharia parameters used in Zakat, there is no issue in this. So obviously, we need to understand how SDGs are in line with Maqasid Sharia. So this is one of the research in which the researchers have identified how Maqasid Sharia is linked with SDGs. So in a nutshell, we find that from this slide, there is no reason why we can't align SDGs with Maqasid Sharia, because Maqasid Sharia is broad enough to cover the areas found in SDGs, and most of the SDGs are already covered as seen in this slide. Now, another thing that we have to understand is that why do we have to link Zakat and SDGs? Now, these are four tips or the reasons why we can link Zakat with SDGs. First is Zakat is a philanthropic pool too large to ignore. it depends on the number of Muslims. Some people put it in a simpler way, saying that as long as Muslims live in the world, definitely zakat will grow day by day, because it is a quasi muamalat and quasi ibadat matter, as some people see it. So therefore, the pool is too large, and effectively, if we utilize that pool, definitely it has so much potential that, as seen in during the time of our fifth caliph, Caliph Umar bin Abdulaziz, there could be no poverty and there could be no receivers of zakat in that sense. So next is zakat is highly aligned with the SDGs. So it is obvious that there are different SDGs which overlaps with the objectives of zakat, and the recipients of zakats are covered in SDGs as well. We will see that in the next slide. Next is UNDP has already begun harnessing zakat for SDG projects. So since the authors are from UNDP itself, they have articulated that in this article. They have done various projects with Basnas of Indonesia in finding out the potential of achieving SDGs through zakat, and the outcome of these projects have already shown that zakat and SDGs are compatible. So there's no doubt that we have passed the time where we were deliberating whether this could be done or not, but we have come to a stage that we have acknowledged that zakat can be linked with SDGs, and there are various types of advantages we get when we link zakat with SDGs. So that part is already confirmed. The final one is engaging with zakat is an opportunity for a wide range of stakeholders. So obviously, when it comes to Islamic economics, our stakeholders not only include people, we include environment as a stakeholder as well, and the definition of stakeholders are beyond of what we see in the classical times as including poor and widening the rich gap between rich and poor, using money as a form of way to mitigate those types of things we find in the society, which leads to social injustice. So from this slide, it is clear that we can map zakat with SDGs. And how to map it, as you can see from here, the Maqasid al-Sharia already aligns with different types of SDGs that we find. And as a result, the outcome we understand from here is that zakat and SDGs overlap with Maqasid al-Sharia. And justification for linking zakat with SDGs is that, first, Maqasid al-Sharia aligns with SDGs. This shows that SDGs are developmental goals, and it leads to improving socio-economic life of humans to have a quality life. And this is in line with the Quranic verse 785, where the verse supports the sustainable development concept. And then finally, we have the fact that zakat strives to achieve maqasid al-sharia. So it's like in a circular motion where one thing leads to another and bring domino effect to the societies. So what we believe is that the UN SDG goals, as well as the recipients of the zakat, kind of overlap, and as a result, there are potential of zakat that is still untapped to realize, we can say, maqasid al-sharia as well as UN SDGs. So next is issues in zakat administration. So currently, if we look at the problems in zakat administration, you will find that in zakat administration, we find it is always about the local area in which you are situated. The mindset is that poor people located, or the needy, or the recipients, or the asnafs located in a particular area will be considered under the purview of that particular zakat organization. Therefore, it is limited to certain areas, and therefore we are unable to see the bigger picture, and effective zakat distribution could be an issue. Next is establishing sustainable zakat funds as a collection of zakat is passive. There's a mistake there. Instead of waqf, it should be zakat. So establishing a sustainable zakat fund as collection of zakat is passive. Here simply means that it is very rarely that we see that zakat organizations strive actively to collect funds. Rather than that, the mindset we have today is that zakat is something that will be paid by the Muslims who are eligible to pay. So instead of creating awareness or running here and there, it is better to wait and sit at the office, so that once the funds is received, only thing the zakat organization should do is the disbursement. So in some areas, this is the practice which they follow, because they believe that no active role is required to collect funds in this area. So next is unable to have an effective mechanism to locate the most deserved recipients of zakah. So how do we know who are in our societies who must receive zakat? If we are not conducting a survey or thoroughly trying to find who should be given or who are the most deserved zakat recipients, it's kind of impossible for us to gauge whether whatever we are doing is correct or not, and we don't understand whether what we are doing is effective. And there are many issues that lead to this. If you look at the different zakat organizations, data collection and understanding the societies is still a hiccup we face. If you ask for data, for example, most of the zakat organizations are still unable to provide those data, and they don't study those data to find what needs to be improved continuously. So this is something we need to be mindful, and systematically we need to do this, as this could be a governance issue. So next is zakat fund is mainly used for consumption, and asnaf empowerment programs are limited. So if you look at different countries, how they manage it, they manage zakat funds differently, but the main idea is give the money, distribute the money. We don't care whether it is used for consumption or for other purposes, as long as it is given to the correct asnaf. So asnaf empowerment programs are something that we need to initiate. Next is inability to establish a ihsan-based registration system for asnaf to receive zakah. So this simply means that sometimes there are asnafs, when we interview them, they come and say, we feel that we are humiliated when the zakat registration processes are made. Simply because it depends. For example, imagine a single mother with children. So if that person goes to a zakat administration office to receive zakat, obviously cross-verification will be done. And in cross-verification procedure, there would be various types of interviews and various types of processes the person will go through. And depending on the interviewing officer, the way how the questions are asked, the way how the processes are done, the person might feel more shameful than, it could be better rather than sitting at home without receiving anything than going to a zakat office. So this is something we should be mindful, and these are some of the issues that we face in zakat administration today. So these are some of the issues. There are more than this, but due to the limitation of time, we will just discuss up to this. Now, what is the potential of zakat? So there is a lot of potential of zakat that we could tap, provided that we have the right technology, we have the right political will, we have obtained the right fatwas that we have to receive from the Sharia scholars to use zakat money in the proper way. And also, we should be able to unlock the full potential of zakat, provided that there is proper Sharia governance mechanisms followed in zakat administration. For example, at the end of the day, we need to conduct Sharia review, Sharia audit of whatever has happened to the funds, and we need to be stringent in application of governance standards, high level of governance standards, to have, not only because we are accountable in this world, but in Akhirah also we are supposed to be accountable for this type of money we spend in our societies, because it is a ibadat matter as well. So provided that we do all these 4 things, we can definitely unlock the full potential of zakat. So the first thing we need to do is internationalization of zakat. So this simply means that rather than talking about my people, my country, we need to think like ummah. We need to promote brotherhood principles so that we would not say that the zakat money we collect in a specific location is for that specific location and would sit on it even though there aren't eligible asnafs in that particular area. So we need to internationalize zakat and think that the whole world is like one ummah, and since it is one ummah, we shouldn't have any such restrictions in doing so. Next is adoption of active zakat collection strategies. So one of the strategies could be, for example, during COVID, we understood that the physical collection of zakat is not possible. So therefore, we have invented using online transactions, we can transfer zakat money. And likewise, even door-to-door zakat collection is also done if they don't have online zakat collection, zakat payment facilities available. So meaning that actively we need to collect the zakat funds. Not only that, but also we need to create awareness about how to calculate zakat funds and how important it is to give zakat money on time. And also during the COVID time, what we have encountered is that in some parts, the zakat funds became like depleted because there were so many asnafs that became poor overnight and they needed more aid than it was like a normal year. So as a result, we had to use fatwas whereby it says that you can even pay zakat forward. So these things need to be like actively promoted by the zakat organizations, and then only we will see that zakat funds are sustainable and we have enough funds to cover the needs of the asnafs. So next is implementing effective strategies to locate the most deserved recipients and maintaining their registry. So in this regard, what we understand is that normally, when we try to locate persons who are in remote areas, it becomes difficult because we don't know their whereabouts. And once a registration is done, again, if the change of address is not communicated, we are unable to locate them, and as a result, we might lose them in the process. Therefore, in order to have the proper information about the whereabouts of these most deserved recipients and how the zakat money could be distributed to them, it is important to use the technology that we have today. This is Industry 4.0. So we might use IoT, Internet of Things, for this purpose. One way of doing that is, for example, for the zakat recipient, once the first time registration is done, a smart gadget with a sensor will be given, and he would take that sensor, that gadget to home, and then through the gadget, the zakat organizations can collect information. Today, it is even possible to understand whether they are facing hunger or whether they are feeling sad or whether they are feeling happy through this type of gadget sensors. So I believe that we just need to innovate such mechanisms and find a solution for it rather than saying that we have to physically go and find whereabouts of them and we have to do it in a physical manner. And now the excuse we have is always COVID. We say that due to COVID, we are unable to do this. We have this limitation, that limitation. So instead of focusing on our limitations, why don't we just start using innovative technologies for our advantage? So that is the message I want to give. Next is creating tailor-made zakat programs to assist recipients to be empowered rather than giving money for consumption. So obviously there's nothing wrong in giving money for consumption purposes, but if we come up with structured zakat programs to empower them, like it is done in Singapore by Muiz or Basnaz in Indonesia, those things will give some kind of empowerment to the society, and we will find more zakat payers than zakat asnafs. So the last point deals with this point, whereby it is said that building the spirit of brotherhood and motivate zakat receivers of today to be tomorrow's zakat payers. So this should be our motive in spending the zakat money. So what is the way forward here? Obviously, we need to internationalize zakat, and we need to look the whole of Muslim countries or Muslims living in the world as one ummah. So for one ummah, if anybody is affected, we should be willing to spend zakat money, and we should be willing to help each other in that sense. So single ummah and the spirit of brotherhood with solidarity needs to be promoted with shared responsibility. So shared responsibility here means individually or collectively, we should be prepared to help each other, and zakat could be in forefront in this regard. So the question here would be, how practical is it to internationalize zakat? Now, it has been already done. So using this example of how zakat support from Malaysia helped communities in Kenya to recover from drought, we understand that this is something we could really implement in the world, and this is something that we should strategize and move towards. So it says that with the right partnership, zakat from a state in Malaysia was able to help 1 million people halfway around the world in rural Kenya. And if you look at the impact of it, you see the figures in one side. So imagine the impact it has created. Imagine the good name it has given to zakat itself, and we can understand that effective zakat administration is very vast, in the sense that the output is something we can't even imagine. So it is something we have to understand. Now the question is, how do we do it? Instead of having a decentralized way of managing the zakat funds, I believe that it is time to centralize the way in which we manage zakat fund in the whole ummah. So my last slide is about the recommendation which I want to propose here, that is adoption of crypto zakat. So when crypto zakat is adopted, the idea here is that instead of having crypto zakat for every organization of zakat, one platform could be used to connect the zakat payers and the zakat recipients, making the role of regulatory authorities of zakat and the zakat management organizations to actively find the most deserved zakat recipients and put them in the system, so that any zakat payer could find them in the system to give the money. So basically, in this zakat platform, the whole idea is blockchain technology will be used. So the simplest way of defining blockchain technology is to state that it is a decentralized distributed ledger where provenance of a digital asset is recorded. And the reason why we call it crypto zakat platform is because the technology used is blockchain technology. And when we look at how this platform works, is that it is so transparent and it has higher level of governance that the transactions conducted in this platform becomes immutable, and therefore the confidence of the parties involved in the transactions will be boosted. So imagine that imagine a practical scenario whereby the zakat management organizations from all over the world will be listing or will be putting the information about the asnaf in various parts of the world. And from any part of the world, the zakat payer could be, and the zakat payer will have to first register in the platform and will have to have a digital wallet to do the transactions. So once he successfully registers in the platform, he will be able to identify or find out the most deserved zakat recipients and send the money to wherever the person is located, to whichever zakat asnaf which the person thinks is impactful. So this is something that we could use through technology. So another thing we can think of is when I told you about the humiliation made by some of the Zakat organizations when people are registered to receive Zakat could be mitigated through use of artificial intelligence. For example, we can have chatbots or those types of robo-officers who could deal with customers in a manner that would be uniform, and as a result, the person might not feel so bad inside them that they are asking for money and might not be humiliated. So these are certain things that we could use with the help of the technology. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, our honorable keynote speaker, for her wonderful presentation. The presentation was very precise, informative, and to the point. And definitely, the people who are watching, especially the researchers, the social scientists, and who are in policy making level, they will be benefited, and they can get some important incitements from our session today. So again, I want to give thanks to our honorable keynote speaker for her wonderful presentation. At this point of time, I would like to discuss Dr. Mohammed Umur Farooq. He is an associate professor, Department of Economic and Finance, University of Bahrain, Kingdom of Bahrain, to deliver his speech. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. How much time is for discussions?
10 to 12 minutes, please.
Okay, that's fine. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I would like to express my gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being able to participate in this excellent webinar, and also express my appreciation to the host to invite me as a discussant. This was an excellent, informative presentation by Dr. Aishath. We have actually co-authored on some works together, but haven't had a chance to meet. But Alhamdulillah, this is the first time we are at least virtually meeting each other. In regard to the presentation itself, focusing on Zakah and in connection with the SDG goals, I would like to make some observations that hopefully both the presenter, keynote speaker, as well as others might take as some food for thought, and this requires some further elaborate discussion. Number one, that often when we talk about Zakah and we want to identify the potential of Zakah, relevance of Zakah to solve the problem or challenge of poverty, we often ignore the fact that why in the world that poverty has been persistent in the world, including in the Muslim world. We have a nostalgic historical narrative that some point in history, some point maybe centuries earlier, there was a time when there was no poverty. It was eliminated through good leadership, good governance, and so on. But somehow, after that, that did not continue or sustain. And we ended up with the same kind of thing, that we have persistent poverty. Without actually diagnosing a problem and understanding the problem, when we try to solve it, usually it is not very effective. And in my humble understanding, that we often have ignored the challenge of understanding the poverty, its causes, its nature, its extent, and so on. And then when we try to bring Zakah into the picture, we miss the boat by a long shot. So my first point would be that all of us who believe that Zakah is both an ibadah and a muamala, and it has definitely a very significant role to play, it is important that we understand the causes behind poverty and how Zakah exactly is going to help us in this regard. It needs to be mapped out. Because I have written some papers on these, published papers, including two papers, The Challenge of Poverty and Poverty of Islamic Economics, and another paper in the same line, and also some works on Zakah. I invite the listeners here and the viewers, as well as fellow discussants, to read those to get further understanding. But when I look at the history of us and then try to understand that why poverty persisted, one of the things I find it quite disappointing that it seems that we never have taken poverty as a serious goal to address, serious problem to address. Any society in the last 100 years or so that took the challenge of solving their poverty, they have succeeded. Most of those societies have been able to marginalize poverty to a large extent. Why we are having problems, that needs to be identified and addressed. One of the things about the dysfunctionality of our approach and understanding regarding zakah is that since we take it as an ibadah, most of us are kind of God-fearing and we want to fulfill our requirement to pay zakah, and many of us do pay zakah. But as soon as zakah has been paid, we think our responsibility is done. May Allah accept our ibadah, and then basically let it be barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take care of the problems. But the problems don't get taken care of that way. It requires a mapped out approach, a targeted effort, a specifically designed plan that is going to be used for whatever resource you have. If not just zakah, any resource, if it is not spent in a targeted, in a properly designed, in a mapped out way, we can keep giving zakah. But then I have given zakah, and who got it? How did it help that person? Did it actually help the person in an enduring way, a lasting way, a sustainable way? I am not concerned about that. I have fulfilled my responsibility by giving zakah. Until we realize that our role is not just to give zakah, but to be sensitive enough, to be aware enough, to be engaged enough that I want to see that nobody should be receiving zakah. Nobody should be needing zakah. We should be working together in such a way that a time should come. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, let it take 100 years. That within that time frame, gradually, we are going to move the people who are below poverty to a level where they are not going to need zakah, and maybe they would be even turning into zakah payers. Unfortunately, because of this dysfunctional understanding about what we are doing, result is persistent. That we give zakah, keep giving zakah, but it doesn't solve the problem. So my first point is that one of the good things that is happening now is that we are gradually becoming aware. And not because what Prophet ﷺ taught, the kind of wise and effective teaching that are already there, until, for example, the microcredit movement, until, for example, people like Dr. Muhammad Yunus, they came and told us that we need to put poverty in the museum. We never took that kind of sensitivity in this regard and took the challenge that yes, poverty is a curse. We don't want poverty. Just like we need a vaccine for COVID-19, we should be taking the same kind of seriousness that every person who dies due to poverty is a shame on us. It is something collectively we must address it. Unfortunately, as much as we think intellectually about zakah and many other issues, we don't really have that human sensitivity to engage ourselves, coming together, that in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, we will be able to put poverty in museum. Now, without that kind of zeal, passion, commitment, unfortunately, what happens is that we keep talking about zakah as it's going to do great things, but then as soon as we start opening the reasons or the ways that we can do it, there are a lot of issues that fall apart. And again, because I have already written about these things, I invite you to explore these things, but a few points in regard to particularly the presentation. Number one is that Maqasid has been a very important topic that was developed since time of Imam Ghazali and others. Unfortunately, and in my humble understanding, there could be difference in this regard. Until very recently, we never operationalized it. It was vague, very general. There is no KPI. There is no performance indicator. What do we want to achieve with it? None of these things were clear until very recently. So why did it have to wait until the SDGs that we have to think about what can we really do about these things? Because we have not internalized our own problem-solving approach and commitment to it. A second observation, I hope that Dr. Aisha would take this into consideration. In my humble understanding, Zakah would not fall in the category of philanthropy. Maybe my understanding is somewhat incorrect in this regard, and others can also point out. Philanthropy is in a different category, and Zakah, because it is incumbent upon all the eligible Muslims, it doesn't fall quite within the category of philanthropy. Even in the charity, it is in a different category than just sadaqah or other things. So it is important that maybe we should keep that distinction. Third thing that I would like to also mention is that I would not like to see a centralization of Zakah under any of the current governments of the Muslim world. And I don't want to get into the details of that in this comment. I would like to see institutionalization of Zakah, because at the current level, there is a good possibility that many of these governments, not all, there could be some exceptions, if they take on centralization of Zakah, its failure can be a serious setback for any future enterprise in this regard. And with the level of corruption that exists and lack of good governance, this would be a very dangerous and risky proposition. So I would not talk about centralization of Zakah, but I would like to see institutionalization of Zakah at a different level. Also, I don't really have any kind of nostalgia or, how would I put it, a call for ummah level thinking. I would like to see that. As Muslim, this is very much I would like. But if we wait for ummah level consciousness and brotherhood, where there are lots of Muslims among ourselves who are killing each other, forget about Zakah. If we could just stop killing each other, that would be a great achievement. So we do not need to wait until that ummah level consciousness. At our home, at our neighborhood, in our community, in our own nation states, even though I do not have to agree with the nation state structure, but that's what we have now. We do not need to wait until the ummah level nostalgia to address these things, although anything, progress can be made in this regard would be great. There are a lot more things that could be said. I would like to again thank Dr. Aisha for connecting these discussions with SDGs, which is very much operationalized. We need to explore further, and inshallah there will be other opportunities in future to explore it. And once again, I invite you to read some of my works in this regard, where I have elaborated on some of these issues. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Umur Farooq, for his wonderful speech, though in very short and in very precise. أيها المشاهدون الكرام والضيوف الكرام، الآن يخطب أمامكم في هذه الندوة العالمية التي تنظمها بمركز التنمية المستدامة للعالم الإسلامي المملكة المتحدة الدكتور عبدالناصر الجاسم، وهو الأستاذ المشارك في الكلية الاقتصادية الجامعة المردينية التركية. فليتفضل الدكتور عبدالناصر الجاسم مشكورا. Honorable audience, at this point of time, you will have the deliver of a speech by Dr. Abdulnaser Aljasem. He is an associate professor at the Faculty of Economics, Mardin University, Turkey. The floor is yours, Dr. Abdulnaser Aljasem.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. شكرا جزيلا على هذه الدعوة. Thank you for Professor Aisha, Dr. Aisha. Thank you for Dr. Mohammed Al-Farooq. And I will be delivering this webinar mainly in Arabic, as my English is not as strong. But from time to time, I will give English translation of some of the terms I am referring to. I'm sorry for that, but أريد أن أتحدث عن دور الزكاة في التكافل الاجتماعي وإعادة توزيع الدخل بشكل عادل. ربما سأذهب في الموضوع إلى economic view، نظرة اقتصادية نوعا ما. الزكاة كما هو معروف هي عنصر أساسي من عناصر المنظومة الإسلامية التي جاءت لتحقق التكافل الاجتماعي وإعادة توزيع الدخل بشكل عادل. ولكن هذا العنصر لن يؤتي ثماره إذا كانت العناصر الأخرى غير منضبطة، كالفساد الإداري وغياب الأمن والوعي وانتشار الجهل والظلم والاستغلال. ربما كما أشار الدكتور محمد منذ قليل هناك ترتيب أولويات، أو هناك عوامل كثيرة ستكون أو ستقف عائق في تحقيق الزكاة لغاياتها، أو في تحقيق دور الزكاة في هذا التكافل المنشود. الحقيقة للزكاة جانبان، يعني هناك جانب إسعافي. زكاة has two aspects. ambulatory aspects يعني جانب إسعافي فوري، وذلك لتلبية الحاجة الضرورية الملحة التي لا يمكن تأجيلها، ويتمثل ذلك بمصرف الفقير الذي لا يجد ما يأكل أو ما يسكن به، ومصرف عتق الرقاب الذي يتمثل اليوم بتحرير الأسرى، ومصرف الغارمين الذين أثقلتهم الديون، ومصرف في سبيل الله المتمثل بتأمين خطوط الدفاع الأولى وحماية الأوطان. There is another aspect, a development aspect، جانب التنموي يكون بعد تحقيق الجانب الإسعافي، ويهدف إلى تحقيق التكافل الاجتماعي وتوزيع الدخل بشكل عادل. ويلاحظ هذا الجانب من خلال الفروع التالية. مثلا Islam made the payment of zakat or alms to needy relatives، يعني جعل الإسلام دفع الزكاة أو الصدقات للأقربون. الأقربون هم أولى بالمعروف إلى الأقارب والأرحام المحتاجين، أولى من دفعها إلى الأبعد. كذلك الإسلام جعل دفع الصدقات والزكاة في البلد الذي يوجد فيه المال. located money is located، يعني في البلد الذي يحتاج المال أولى من نقلها إلى بلد آخر، وهذا ما يسمى بالاكتفاء الذاتي لكل بلد. كذلك ذهب أغلب الفقهاء إلى أن الفقير أو المسكين يعطى من الزكاة ما يكفيه، ربما لمدة عام، سواء كانت الزكاة نقدا أم عينا. ثم ذهب بعضهم إلى إعطائه ما يغنيه ربما العمر كله، كمشروع أو يعني طريقة لتحصيل الدخل المستمر، كشراء آلة أو افتتاح مشروع أو إلى ما هنالك. أيضا جعل الإسلام المقدار الواجب إخراجه من الزكاة متناسبا مع الجهد الذي يبذله الإنسان. كلما قل الجهد زاد مقدار الواجب دفعه كزكاة. فمثلا الأموال التي يتعب بها الإنسان، يتعب بجنيها، يجب يعني تجب الزكاة فيها بمعدل 2.5%. أما الزروع مثلا والثمار، وهناك يعني تكاليف كأجور السقي ورعاية وإلى ما هنالك، تزداد النسبة إلى 5%. وإذا اعتمد على المطر في سقايتها فتزداد إلى 10 وهكذا. إذا هناك ربط بين الجهد والجهد المبذول ومقدار إخراج الزكاة. This is all indication of the importance of the fair distribution of the income. كل ما تقدم وهناك الكثير يشير إلى يعني أهمية التوزيع العادل للدخل. هناك أمر آخر وهو الاستثمار في مال الزكاة، استثمار أموال الزكاة في مشاريع، يعني investing zakat funds in projects with renewable rents، يعني أن تستثمر أموال الزكاة في مشاريع ذات ريعية متجددة. وناقشت المجاميع الفقهية هذه القضية ولهم فيها آراء متعددة. مهما يكن إن مثل هذه المشاريع ستؤدي بلا شك إلى تحقيق المجتمع المتكافل. في النتيجة وفي الخلاصة، الإسلام aims to economic development of all kinds. الإسلام يهدف إلى التنمية الاقتصادية بكل أنواعها. إن كان الفرد فقيرا لا يملك رأس المال، فإن مؤسسة الزكاة بإمكانها أن تؤمن له التمويل الأساسي لمشروعه. إن بدأ مشروعه لكنه تعثر وصار مدينا، كذلك مؤسسة الزكاة تستطيع أن تقدم له المساعدة في تسديد الديون وإعادة العودة أو النهضة من جديد حتى يقوى ويشتد عوده. عندها يصير هو مطالب برد الجميل وأداء الزكاة إلى مستحقيها، ليساهم هو أيضا بدوره بالتنمية المتكاملة وبناء المجتمع المتكافل. هذا على مستوى الفرد. فكيف لو كان هذا العمل كما أشارت as Dr. Aisha mentioned، لو كان العمل منظم على مستوى the countries or the أمة، على مستوى العالم الإسلامي. نأمل ونتمنى من الله تعالى أن يسدد آراء يعني صانعي القرار ويتوجهوا نحو المقاصد الحقيقية لدور الزكاة في الحياة الاجتماعية والحياة الاقتصادية. شكرا لاستماعكم وشكرا لتفهمكم.
أشكركم وأحييكم الدكتور عبدالناصر الجاسم لخطبتكم الجميلة. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulnaser, for your wonderful speech. I would like to invite at this point of time Dr. Nazrul Islam to deliver his speech. He is from United States of America. He is a scientist by profession.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan for giving me this opportunity. And to be honest, if you take one man out of this speaker, I would be the one, because I don't have any experience, neither experience nor knowledge about this subject. To be honest, I did not know before the speech of our guest speaker that we were talking about the SDGs. So please forgive me if the things that I'm going to talk is not very much relevant to what we Sister Aisha presented. Having said that, I thought we are in the three-step process of Zakah. One is the motivation to collect the Zakah, and the second one basically collection, and the third one will be the distribution. To be honest, in our subcontinent, if we take an example, people are still do not consider Zakah as a rights of the poor. People think this is the mercy. And in this regard, if you see that people are using this as a tool for their political gain, and as Brother Farooq mentioned nicely. So this is really difficult to move from the Ummah concept unless there is a big change in our governmental system. And it is really too ambitious to make the things as on the basis of Ummah. Because of this, you cannot send the money without informing to the government institution. And if goes through them, 100% might be consumed before reaching to the potential recipient. So that really too ambitious, I should say. But what I am thinking, just listening to the lecture from our sister, it could be a micro village concept. Instead of considering the whole ummah, you can take within the country a small space, a small place, so that you can apply those things, not as an for consumption, but to grow it further. So you don't need to go back to that micro village next time. So this is one of the concept, I think, as a layman point of view. As I said, I don't have any publication on these things. I published the paper on biotechnology. And so I don't have the any idea of what I'm talking about now. The second thing, and that I did not see with the presentation as well, with the discussion with other panels, we are talking about the Zakah, but at the same time, the Western country people are using the tax. So why Zakah is more useful tool than tax? This is one. And for example, last year I paid $15,000 tax, and then Donald Trump paid $950. You know, so looks like that the rules is there, but implementation is not in a way to give money to the poor man like me, but it is basically giving money to our president, Donald Trump, $950 he paid for the last year. So this is another way of thinking that how this, I mean, I was reading a book regarding this wealth distribution, and they're talking about the Gini's index, something like that. I was reading a paper on this Gini's index, something like that. So in social welfare country, sometimes, I mean, especially the communist country, they think that all the wealth belongs to, I mean, the government. So there is no difference between the poor and the rich. On the other hand, the capitalist country, they are using tax, but it's still the gap between the poor and the rich is increasing rather than decreasing. So with that, actually, as I said, I don't have any other things to say. What I basically did, I have some, while I am getting ready for this, whatever the panel discussion, I did a study about what is Zakah, why it is called purification, why it called it to grow, you know, those kind of things that I never came to know that is something that it grows. And I was listening to the lecture of Mufti Man, and he told that the portion of the Zakah that we put forward is called the Habba, that means seed. I never heard of these things before. So one of the meaning of Zakah is grow. I was thinking how it grows, because I'm giving away some of my wealth to the people, how it grows. And so after watching his lecture, and I found that this is really very fantastic. So that was what I have in mind. And Jazakallah khairan for giving me an opportunity. I should be rather a good listener rather than speaker in this panel. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Nazrul Islam, for your speech, though it is very short and very precise. At this point of time, may I invite Professor Dr. Mohammed Ruhul Amin. He is the Global President, World Muslim Heritage Research Center, USA, to deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil amin, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Respected keynote speaker, Dr. Aishath Muneeza, Hafizahullah, respected chair, Dr. Abu Umar Farooq Ahmed, Hafizahullah, and respected guest of honor, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, Hafizahullah, honorable discussant, and my beloved moderator. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also to the organizer for inviting me to this noble webinar, which is titled Role of Zakah as an Islamic Social Finance Tool in Realizing SDGs. So, respected brothers and sisters, we know that Islam is a complete code of human life. And everything have been discussed elaborately in Quran and Sunnah. And Zakah is one of the important pillars of Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever mentions Salah, Salah is physical ibadah, ibadah badaniya. And Zakah, it is financial ibadah, ibadah maliya. And Hajj, it is includes both financial and physical. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Aqimus Salah wa Atuz Zakah. Whenever mentioned, so many places in the Holy Quran mentioned Zakah, included Salah and Zakah. Salah is physical ibadah and Zakah is financial ibadah. This means that Islam motivated us to perform Salah as well as to involve ourselves with the financial activities and welfare of the peoples, of society, community, human being, all creation. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best nation, you are the noblest nation raised for the mankind. So we are the beneficial. And Islam has clearly commanded us and made it obligatory to transfer of our wealth, not to put in one hand, to decentralization of wealth. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, wa atuz zakah, wa atuz zakah. If we decentralize our wealth by giving charity, sadaqah, infaq, waqf, and then by this way we can make our finance smooth. So Islam in this regards made the 5 maqasid. Maqasid Sharia, purpose of Sharia. Purpose of Sharia, it is very important. Why Islam commanded us to do this thing? Why Islam prevented us to abstain from this thing? There are some maqasid. So maqasid Sharia, there are 5 basic things. These are Hifzun Nafs, Hifzuddin. Hifzun Nafs is protection of life, and Hifzuddin, protection of religion. Hifzul Mal, protection of property. Hifzul Nasal al-Ard, protection of lineage or progeny. And Hifzul Aql, protection of mind or intellectuality. So these 5 things are very important. And these 5 things are, there are 3 categories according to the Maqasid al-Sharia, 3 categories. One is al-Daruriyat, and second is al-Hajiyat, and third one is al-Tahsiniyat. Al-Daruriyat, which is the essential things, basic and fundamental things. Without this thing, our society, our people will be corrupted. So these are the basic things. Every human being, they deserve to get these basic things. And second is complementary, tahsiniyat, and third one is luxurious. So according to Islam, and at the same time, SDGs goal, the basic things to ensure basic things, SDGs, or sustainable development goals, these United Nations working to ensure these basic and fundamental rights of human being, and not only human being, for all creation, to ensure these basic needs, basic fundamental rights. These are 5 rights, basic. So right of shelter, right of clothes, right of eating, and right of treatment. These basic and fundamental things to ensure this thing, SDGs goal. They have a plan, long-term plan, 2030. they want to achieve this thing. But Zakah system, it is very unique system. Our keynote speaker, Sister Aisha, nicely discussed on this topic. You know that Zakah, it is proven tool to alleviate poverty and hunger. You know that this is not only theory that we are saying, it was practically proven during the rule of Omar radiallahu ta'ala, second Caliph, and also the fifth Caliph of Islam, Umur ibn Abdulaziz radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. There was no one eligible to receive Zakah money. Everybody and Zakah workers, they were finding and searching to give Zakah, but no one was eligible to receive Zakah. So this is proven. So my dear brothers and sisters, so we need to rethink, and we need to do more research on this thing, how Zakah can solve our social problem, our financial problem. And you know that SDGs goals, 17 goals, among these 17 goals, Zakah can solve these all goals. If we think that poverty is the one of the most important problem and crisis in the world, you will be astonished. You will be astonished that in the world more than 780 million people, 11% of the world's population live in extreme poverty on less than $1.90 per day. Can you imagine this thing? And you know that even though in United States we think that it's a great country, but in DC, United States, the most of the people, 7,000 people, more than 7,000 homeless in DC. 14.9% in DC are food insecure. 27.9% in DC child food insecurity. They are facing extreme problem. So this poverty, how can we solve this poverty? And Sister Aisha already told that there should be some mechanism, some ways, some methodology we should adopt in this regard. And I support her concept, the Ummah concept. This Ummah concept, it is great concept. Even though Brother Abu Umar, he said that this let us think locally. But I think that our OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference, they can think about this if they cannot implement 100%, but we can, let us start. Thousands mile journey starts with the first step. Let us think, let us dream. If we don't have a dream, then how can we implement this thing? And this thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna hadhi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fa'abudun. So this ummah concept, we have to realize, maybe 10% people will be realize this concept, maybe 5% or less than 5%. But let us start. And this ummah concept and internationalized of Zakah concept, because if Somalian brothers, they are facing any problem, or Ethiopian brothers, or any African brothers, we should feel the same feelings. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Masalul mu'minina fi tawaddihim wa tarahumihim wa ta'atufihim kamasalil jasadi idza ishtaka lahu 'udbun tada'a lahu sa'irul jasadi bis-sahri wal humma." So this feeling and love sharing feelings, we should be like one body. If anyone our body feels ails, then we should feel this thing, the pain. And so Zakah, we have to think how we can manage Zakah. So Zakah collection and motivation to give Zakah. A lot of people, they don't know, even rich people, they don't know how to pay Zakah. So motivation, collection, and distribution, these three things. And we have to analysis about the Zakah collection body. We can make this centrally and zonal, and then district level and local. and there should be expert, and they will be thinking there should be the international ulama scholars. They will be fixing the Haddul Kifaya. Haddul Kifaya. What is Haddul Kifaya? And by this way, we can solve this problem. And there is a close connection with Zakah and SDGs goals. Suppose poverty alleviation and hunger, prevention of hunger, good health. And this is very much Islamic guidance also to solve this problem: quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, economic growth, and also inequality, sustainable cities, and sustainable consumption, climate change. This everything Islam does think, and Islam is very conscious about solve this problem. So let us work together and make Zakah as a important tool to prevent poverty and to eradicate poverty, hunger, and the social problems. And
thank you, Dr. Ruhul.
Yes, we can do, inshallah, if we think. And let us start from now, inshallah, and let us force OIC to do work on this, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for inviting me, and Jazakumullah khairan for your beautiful arrangement. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me such a beautiful seminar, webinar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to think about our ummah. Amin. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ruhul Amin, for his wonderful speech. We have been waiting to hear from our honorable guest of honor, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed. Before going to him, may I invite Mohammed Zakir Hussain. He is a doctoral researcher, agricultural genetic engineering. I may be wrong in pronouncement of the university, Negdi Omar Halit's Mayor University, Turkey, to say a few words within 3 or 4 minutes, please. Can you please unmute, please?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of the session, and Chair of thanks. And I am very happy to have a scope to talk here. And this is your brother Mohammed Zakir Hussain from. I'm basically from Bangladesh. Right now, I'm pursuing my PhD degree in Nide Omar Halisdemir University, Nide, Turkey. So, as I'm the younger one here, and basically the honorable prominent scholar, those who have delivered their speech, I'm the age of the son of everyone on average. So, as from my point of understanding, what I have realized, the management of Zakah in Bangladesh, as the prominent scholars already disclosed this, the necessity of management of Zakah, especially the institutionalization of Zakah in the Muslim world. And as I am talking about Bangladesh, from my understanding, the existence of poverty for a long time here in Bangladesh, due to the unequal distribution of wealth among the people, those who have in really need, but due to mismanagement and due to lack of institutionalization, still the poverty is remaining in Bangladesh. And what is going on, you are more aware about than me. So from my position, I'm trying to work on Zakat management, and I have an organization named IZAMPA, Implementation of Zakah as a Means of Poverty Annihilation. And I will be very happy to have any collaboration and have a scope to work any prominent organization and with this prominent scholar, those who are working worldwide. And as I have, I'm going to finish my doctorate within short time, and I have more potentiality and time to work with this field. So I will be happy to have a further scope to work on these issues. And I'm providing my thanks again to the organizing committee to have such kind of scope to talk here. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Respected audience and guest, at this point of time, may I invite Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed as the guest of honor to deliver his speech. He is the Sharjah Chair in Islamic Law and Finance, Business School, Durham University, United Kingdom. The floor is yours, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed.
Thank you very much. I have a presentation to share. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Can you see the screen now?
Not yet, sorry.
After sharing, you have to go to the actual presentation.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Not yet?
Not yet.
I think it's not working. So let me just continue without the screen. I had some very interesting graphs to share, so I'll not be able to do that, unfortunately. I don't know if I should try the final time, and then if not, I will. And I understand that it will be taking, it's saying something here. Share screen.
Press the share screen, and then
yes.
Once you find it, you choose it from there, the presentation you want to share, and then go to that file. Don't wait in that screen. Go to the exact file and enlarge it, and you can present it by looking at the screen where you have the actual presentation.
No, it's giving me a message. Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen. So I think there's a problem. Okay, let me just continue without the presentation. I'll try to maybe talk around the, so I had some graphs to show. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to share that.
Or if you, I can show from here. If
do I send it to you?
Yeah, if you can please, yeah, by email, yeah.
Or email or by WhatsApp?
Any means, yeah, or WhatsApp, yes, okay.
I'm sending it to brother.
So, Brother Khalid, why, while we are getting ready with the presentation, we can ask our the guest speaker to give some highlights of the question that we raised, for example, taxation.
Yeah, I will give her floor, yeah.
I've sent the presentation. Let me just while the presentation is loaded, I think I can start.
Okay, please.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and Assalamu alaikum again to everyone. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me on this very important topic, role of Zakah as a tool, Islamic finance tool in realizing the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, in terms of the background, as was mentioned by Sister Aisha, SDGs are something which has been agreed upon by all the countries of the world through the United Nations. And when it was launched in 2015, they already mentioned that the SDGs are very ambitious and they will require a lot of resources. And during that time, a UN report estimated that the gap to finance the SDGs would be close to 2.5 trillion US dollars annually. And this would be mainly in developing and emerging economies. Now, of course, with the COVID, this number has increased further. As we know that COVID has pushed back the progress of SDGs significantly. And these gap has to be in some ways filled by from different sources. Not the government cannot do it itself. The private sector has to be involved, and also the third sector, which includes non-profits, also should be involved. And of course, in Muslim societies, Zakah is one of the potential sustainable source of funding, especially the social goals of the SDGs. And as was mentioned, there are different estimates of the potential Zakah which can be collected annually, which runs into hundreds of billions of dollars. I've done my estimation, and it can be somewhere between 125 to close to $300 billion. There was an IDB estimate which even talks about close to 1 trillion US dollars. Now, as has been mentioned, and I mean, this is the basic thing is that Zakah is a tool of empowerment and poverty alleviation. And I think Sister Aisha had very nicely shown links between the SDGs and Zakat. I think when we look at SDGs and Zakat, there are three primary SDGs which directly link to Zakat, and these are no poverty, no hunger, and inequalities. And then we have some other supporting SDGs like good health, good education, affordable housing, clean energy, which also supports these primary SDGs of no poverty, zero hunger, and reduced inequalities. Now, if we look at the achievement, and that's where the graph actually came up, this was taken from an annual report of SDG, the progress report, and I had collected some figures for the OIC member countries, 56 OIC member countries, in terms of their progress in goal number 1, no poverty, goal number 2, zero hunger, and goal number 10, reduced inequalities. We see that of the 56 member countries, only 5 member countries of OIC, they are in some ways achieving the goal of no poverty. So the remaining 53 countries, actually they are facing challenges to meet these goals. So for hunger, actually none of the OIC countries are meeting the goal of zero hunger. And we have only one country of the 56 countries meeting the goal of reduced inequalities. So we see that there's a significant gap in terms of what the objectives of SDGs are and the current status of OIC member countries. There was another graph, very interesting graph, which I wanted to share with you. And this relates to the income inequality. And it is actually, I was also very surprised to see this graph. And this graph was taken from World Inequality Report 2018. That's the latest they had published. And there they show the top 10% income going, sorry, GDP going to the 10% of the households. So the richest 10%, how much of the GDP goes to them. In Europe, or how much is the wealth or the income going to them. In Europe, the top 10% of the population, they get 37% of the income. But the interesting thing in the graph was that the worst distribution of income was in the Middle East. 61% of the income goes to the top 10% of the population. Now, this means that the distribution of income actually gives different countries and different regions. The worst is in the Middle East, where 61% of the income goes to the top 10% of the rich households. Now, if you look at this, that means that the zakah is not working at the macro level. The distribution of income in Muslim countries and also the SDGs are not being achieved. Now, of course, there is a gap in terms of the potential and the reality. And Sister Aisha and also the brothers who commented on her presentation, they have identified a lot of gaps. I think the concept is there, and we know that in history it was done well. The problem is of implementation, definitely. And of course, there have been different suggestions which have been given in terms of implementation. I think, as was mentioned, there are three key issues. There are problems related to collection, there are problems related to disbursement and impact, and the final problem relates to the organizational issues in terms of implementing zakah during contemporary times. Now, in terms of zakah collection, I think the problem is that most of us give our zakah as individuals. It is not being institutionalized, so the impact is not there. Individuals pay zakah in a dispersed manner, and Dr. Omar Farooq mentioned about this, that once we have paid our zakah, we are not worried about the impact. And actually, if you're paying zakah individually, I don't think we can expect any impact. It has to be institutionalized. The zakah collection has to be done by an organization, and the implementation has to be planned in a way that it can create impact. And in terms of zakah collection, I think there are some other issues which also have been highlighted. One of these issues relates to the contemporary zakatable assets. The wealth nowadays is very different than the wealth of the past. We have a new kind of assets, financial assets, crypto assets, among others. And all of these are zakatable assets because they are the new categories of wealth. So I think the collection will increase a lot when all of these assets are included in the wealth which can be on which zakah should be paid. And I think the other thing which also has been highlighted by a few is the literacy part. I think a lot of people who want to pay zakah, they don't know how much to pay zakah, what are the assets they have, and so there has to be in some ways more literacy about zakah itself. Of course, it is a religious duty, as was mentioned. It is a financial ibadah, but to perform this ibadah, we must have knowledge. Just as we have knowledge about performing salah, we have to have knowledge about zakah. And I think this actually is lacking in a lot of cases. I mean, if you talk to a common person, it's very difficult for them to understand what is the zakah they have to pay every year. In terms of Zakar disbursement, again, this has been mentioned. I think there are some people who need zakah for consumption, but bulk of it should be used for productive purposes. It should be actually used to empower people. And another, I think, area where it should be used for during contemporary times is to increase resilience against risks. Just like there is inequalities in the distribution of income and wealth, there's also inequalities in the distribution of risk. What happens is that whenever a negative shock like a COVID hits, the poorest are the hardest hit and they are least protected. And actually, with every negative shock, it causes further inequalities. And I think this is one of the points which Dr. Umar Farooq mentioned in terms of we have to understand how poverty in some ways is generated within societies. And one of the ways, I think, one of the key ways in which poverty in some ways perpetuates is through negative shocks. Whenever there's a negative shock, it is the poorest who actually bear the burden of the shocks, and they move down to even further in the poverty, vicious circle of poverty. So I think we have to think, given that we live in risk societies nowadays, we have to really think of using zakah to increase resilience towards risk. And finally, the point I want to make was the institutionalization of zakah. As was mentioned, if we pay individually, it doesn't have impact. During contemporary times, most of the Muslim countries, they cannot trust their governments. As I say, in some countries, of course, they're doing well. So I think the key role here is with civil society. The civil society has to play this role to actually implement zakah. And if you look at contemporary success stories of zakah implementation, you will see that these are done by civil societies. These are not done by governments. These are done by non-profit organizations, people who come together with a good intention of actually implementing zakah during contemporary times. There's a need for institutionalization of zakah because we need to have impact, and we cannot have impact unless we pool the zakah and manage it efficiently. So there is a need for organizational capacity building within the civil societies. I'm involved with Zakah, the National Zakah Foundation worldwide here and UK. And interestingly, we have our National Zakah Foundation in UK. You will be surprised to know that the CEO of this organization was an investment banker. So he has joined this bank and he's basically running the Zakah organization. So we need to have professionals who come and run these organizations because it is actually in some ways a complex organization. If you think of the collection and if you think of the distribution and the impact, these need skills and knowledge, which I think in most Zakah organizations it is lacking. Of course, there are issues about efficiency and effectiveness. There are issues about transparency. I think one of the key problems with a lot of non-profits in Muslim world, both Waqf and Zakah, and we face this a lot when we do research, is lack of transparency. You have to understand that these Zakah organizations and Waqf organizations, they are built on trust, and you cannot build trust unless everything is transparent. And the other important issue moving forward is to introduce technology and digitalization, and this was highlighted by Dr. Aisha. And finally, I think if we institutionalize Zakah, one of the benefits we can get is that through this civil society institution, we can actually educate people about Zakah. Before I end, I just want to mention a few things about the COVID SDGs and Zakah. As was mentioned, the COVID has affected the SDG achievement significantly. Actually, there were some studies which in some ways indicated that close to 500 million people may move back to poverty. So the gains of the last 13 years actually will be in some ways gone because of the COVID. And again, as I mentioned, any negative shock, including COVID, is affecting the poor more than the rich. And actually, if you look at the statistics, the rich, they have increased their wealth during COVID. And recently, I saw that the 10 richest persons in America, their wealth increased by $540 billion during 2020. So while most of the people were losing jobs, the 10 richest people in America, their wealth increased. The increase was $540 billion. Now, the interesting thing is, and this relates to COVID and also Zakah, that one of the impact of COVID has been on civil societies also. For example, in UK, the charities, they actually were some estimates that they will lose £4 billion pounds in donations because the income of people have gone down. And another estimate indicated that maybe close to 60 to 70% of the charities will close down because their incomes are in some has gone down because a lot of people have lost their income. Now, interestingly, Zakah is not income-based; it is wealth-based. Usually, income goes down, but the wealth, it is more or less stable than the income. So when it comes to Zakat, we notice that the Zakah actually was not affected. Zakah organizations were not affected like the other charities. And again, I have some numbers from National Zakah Foundation, 2019 versus 2020. And the number of applications for people who wanted to receive Zakah, it increased from 7,000 plus to 19,000 over 1 year. So the implication is that if a lot of Muslims actually were affected by COVID-19, they lost their jobs. So the number more than doubled. There were 19,000 applications plus applications who wanted to actually receive Zakah from National Zakah Foundation. And the amount disbursed increased from 2.9 million pounds to 3.7 million pounds. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the Zakah institution, because its income comes from wealth, actually is more resilient to negative shocks. And as we see in terms of the numbers, the Zakah collection, at least in the case of the National Zakah Foundation, it increased, whereas most of the UK charities, their income actually went down. So with this note, I want to thank the organizers again for giving me this opportunity to speak to the audience here. And I think, as has been mentioned, this is a tool which is not being used, has a lot of potential, but is underutilized. And there is a need to actually develop the operational models. The concepts are there, but operational models are lacking. And I personally feel that the civil society has a very important role to drive this very important institution, religious institution, forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our honorable guest of honor, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, for his wonderful speech. Dear audience, we're at the end part of our international webinar. Before going to our honorable chair, I will go to our honorable keynote speaker for some comments. Before that, Dr. Mohammed Umur Farooq, he requested for 1 minute to say something. So I am going to Dr. Umur Farooq.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to clarify something, and that is in connection with the importance of Ummah consciousness. Ummah is central to our understanding. But any initiative that we want to take to solve the problem does not have to wait until we have some real Ummatic unity or functionality. We can do things at the community level. That does not have to wait for the national level. We can do things at the national level that does not need to wait for the international level. That's the point I was trying to emphasize in, rather than waiting for the Ummah level involvement. That's all. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I would like to invite now Dr. Aishath Muneeza to say a few words about in reply of the speakers.
Thank you very much. So basically, I think what I mentioned is a bit misunderstood, because the concept of having a crypto zakat platform is that it used blockchain technology, which is a decentralized type of a ledger we use in it. And when I say Ummah concept, it simply means that we are going to internationalize zakat if there are no recipients in the local area. We don't sit on the funds. Instead, we will divert the funds to those who need in another area. So that is what I meant by internationalization. It could be from country to another country, like in the case which I mentioned in Kenya, where one of the states in Malaysia has given their zakat money to another country, which is totally like, this is in the recent years, I think this is the first time we have done it. And imagine the work they have done towards it, because getting a fatwa on that was also difficult. And later on, even convincing the people that this is how the zakat could be used is also another challenge for them. Because from immemorial time, we as Muslims believe that zakat is a localized concept. We have to sit on the money if we can't spend it on the local area until next year or the other year, until we find enough people to do that. So that is what I meant by that. So basically, if we adopt the crypto zakat concept, we are saying that the information is fed into one system, and that enables anyone located anywhere to the autonomy to pay zakat to any organization they want, or any recipient they want, without any restrictions. Because see, in crypto zakat platform, you can pay through cryptocurrency, for example, without the intermediary, like a bank, you can transfer even if the transaction is made in a cross-border manner. So I was presuming that the idea of cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology is understood. Maybe that's the mistake I did. Sorry for that, I didn't clarify that point. So with that, thank you very much. It was very enlightening, and I hope that through this deliberations and discussions, we would be able to take zakat to next level, and we will be able to see the full potential of zakat in future, inshallah. Thank you very much for your contribution. I really liked the discussion and the presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your further clarification. At this point of time, I would like to invite our Honorable Chair, Dr. Abu Omar Farooq Ahmed. He is an Associate Professor of Islamic Finance Law, King Abdulaziz University, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to say his remarks as the chair of this session.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala al-mab'uthi rahmatin lil alameen. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ghurri al-mayamin. Amma ba'd. First and foremost, I must thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bestowing his enormous blessings on all of us and giving us tawfiq to have gathered today from the remote corners of his universe in this sacred month of Rajab to discuss an important issue on the role of Zakah as Islamic finance tool in realizing Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. In this connection, I would like to take the opportunity to extend my heartfelt appreciations to the organizers of this event for their painstaking efforts to make this international webinar a reality. Alhamdulillah. My appreciation should also go to the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Aishath Muneeza, guest of honor, Professor Habib Ahmed, and all distinguished discussants, whom I consider the assets for this ummah. I also thank the moderator, Mr. Yahya Khalid, and our valuable audience, without whose active participation it won't have been possible to make this meeting a great success within a short span of time. I believe your all-out support will continue for such future endeavors so that the Muslim Ummah will reap the maximum benefits from these events, inshallah. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Now, please allow me to say a few words as chair, as my concluding remarks of the event and summing it up, for which I have been invited here. Brothers and sisters from all around the world, with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the United Nations has identified a set of ambitious targets which are known as the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that present a new opportunity for humanity to have a common framework to guide our collective actions and achieve a better future for every living being on this earth. Nevertheless, the SDG funding gap, which is estimated at $2.5 trillion per year for developing countries, cannot be closed by traditional development aid alone. Filling this gap will require the engagement of new financing partners and tools to leave no one behind. This is where Islamic social finance in general and Zakah in particular can play a crucial role and offer governments a strong, non-traditional source of financing to advance their SDG implementation. With its emphasis on inclusiveness and core principles such as channeling funding to the real economy by promoting risk sharing, avoiding excessive speculations, and limiting debt to the value of assets, Islamic social finance is strongly aligned with the SDGs. As we all know that the deadline of achieving Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs, has ended in 2015, and now the world is targeting to realize comprehensive sustainable development goals between 2016 and 2030. Although some Muslim countries have recorded remarkable advancements in a number of targets of MDGs in terms of food security, health, education, and poverty alleviation, due to shortage of funds from local and overseas sources, they are still facing several challenges to the attainments of some other targets of MDGs. Similarly, ascertaining the availability of funds is going to be one of the greatest challenges for them to achieve SDGs. For sustainable development, majority of these countries need massive infrastructural development such as roads, bridges, recreational parks, schools, colleges, universities, religious and cultural institutions. Mobilization of resources through taxes, fees, or toll is not enough to finance these much needed public goods. Therefore, finance by individuals as well as by institutions such as private, public, NGOs is very important. It is historically evident that Zakah played a colossal role of socio-economic development in the Muslim societies. These institutions are still capable of offering a universal solutions to achieve SDGs. Zakah, being an Islamic social finance tool, has significant potential to address marginalization and vulnerability when directed towards locally driven programs promoting social and economic inclusion. It is one of the largest forms of wealth transfer to the poor and needy in existence. It is now a global phenomenon of relevance, and not only in Muslim majority countries. Governments of a few countries currently take the responsibility for collecting and distributing zakah on a mandatory basis, while several other countries, including Bangladesh, have established governmental agencies to receive zakah paid on a voluntary basis. However, when linking zakah as tool of Islamic social finance in realizing United Nations SDGs, we need to consider a few things. First, zakah is a philanthropic pool too large to ignore. Second, zakah is highly aligned with the SDGs. Third, UNDP has already begun harnessing zakah for SDG projects. And fourth, engaging with zakah is an opportunity for a wide range of stakeholders. So let's see how zakah is too large to ignore. The potential size of the annual zakah pool, according to World Bank report in 2016, although that data is a bit old, at least we can use it for the time being. The potential size of the annual zakah pool has been estimated between 200 billion and $1 trillion, according to Mr. Obaidullah and Shirazi in 2015 and the World Bank and IDGB in 2016. The precise amount paid is difficult to ascertain, as much of the payment of zakah is done informally, direct from the zakah payer to the recipient, according to the UNDP and business, and often in goods rather than cash. Zakah is much more prevalent than commercial Islamic finance. According to the Pew Research Center, 98% of Muslims in Indonesia, for example, report observing zakah, while the market share of Islamic banking is around 6%, according to the IFSB. The pattern is similar across many countries. Considering the estimated $2.5 trillion annual gap in SDG financing, as reported by the World Economic Forum, a funding source that may be as large as $1 trillion per year cannot be ignored. Then now let's examine how zakah is highly aligned with the SDGs. Relieving hunger, poverty and inequality, promoting peace and harmony, and protecting the environment are central to the core Islamic principles we know as Maqasid al-Sharia. The glorious Quran identifies 8 categories of eligible recipients of zakah, which includes the poor, destitute and needy, refugees, displaced people, and liberating those in bondage. From this perspective, zakah aligns strongly with numerous SDGs, including SDG 1, that is no poverty, as have been mentioned by Professor Habib Ahmed and others. SDG 2, that is zero hunger. SDG 10, that is reduced inequalities, and others. Collaborating with zakah payers and administrators reflects SDG 17, which is the spirit of partnership for the goals. It is about much more than mobilizing finance. Zakah, being an effective tool of Islamic social finance, has an underlying philosophy that embodies socially responsible development and is associated with a wide network of organizations crucial for promoting peace, development, and tolerance. Now, next, let's check how UNDP has engaged. Through an innovative partnership, UNDP Indonesia, for example, has partnered with BASNAS, the National Zakah Collection Body, to harness zakah funding for SDG-related projects. Let's see how the partnership works. BASNAS collects funds as per its organizational mandate. BASNAS makes grants to the UNDP to implement projects, and the UNDP implements projects in accordance with the UN Charter and the UNDP's global policies. Also, the UNDP, in keeping with its principles and policies, makes no presentations about religious laws and will never discriminate on the basis of religion. It only accepts grants on terms consistent with its global principles. The first major collaboration between BASNAS and the UNDP was the installation of micro hydropower plants, which bring electricity to more than 4,500 people in 4 remote communities. This is part of a larger renewable energy project supported by the Global Environment Facility. Future planned projects using zakah funds include support to livelihoods in those communities with newfound access to electricity and the protection of biodiversity. Through such projects, it is possible to see zakah's potential for supporting productive capacities of individuals and communities, and not just consumptive or humanitarian activities, such as the payment of hospital bills and disaster relief and so on. In addition to implementing project funding by zakah, the UNDP can also provide much valued technical assistance to zakah organizations and governments on enhancing the effectiveness of Zakah collection and administration and linking Zakah with the overall SDG strategies. Let's see how can we engage Zakah as an opportunity for a wide range of stakeholders. First, Muslims who pay Zakah should play an effective role by paying Zakah through formal organizations rather than directly, that have been mentioned previously, our guest of honor and also by the keynote speaker and also Dr. Farooq. Second, we need to raise awareness about the link between Zakah and the SDGs by talking to the Zakah organizations to which we contribute and asking them if they are aware of the SDGs and how their contributions support the goals. Third, we should encourage Zakah organizations to explore using funds collected to support productive development activities that enhance people's livelihoods. Zakah collecting bodies can partner with development institutions as implementation partners and sources of overall technical assistance. In this regard, development partners can engage with Zakah collectors, Ameli, and contributors as a new and alternative source of funding and partnership to reach communities that need it most. Fourth, the respective governments can integrate Zakah into their SDG financing plans. And finally, the donor agencies can seek out Zakah institutions as new co-financing partners. In a fast developing middle income G20 countries such as Indonesia, the UNDP has focused on how to unlock the abundant resources available and channel them to where they are needed most. A new report guides Islamic organizations, development professionals, and governments on how to harness the power of Zakah and other Islamic funding and finance to achieve the SDGs. Brothers and sisters, Zakah as an Islamic social finance tool has the potential to play a major role in supporting all 4 SDGs I have mentioned at the outset. That is SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 10, reduced inequalities, and SDG 17. Given the magnitude of the SDGs and the important role that can be played by Zakah in particular, and Islamic finance tool in general, in supporting their implementation and ensuring more robust and inclusive growth, the opportunity to more closely link Islamic finance with sustainable development cannot be overemphasized. Nevertheless, the critics of aligning Zakah with SDGs tend to make fun of this, saying that the fervor to associate Zakah with SDGs indicates an assumption that developments through implementing the institutions of Zakah has finally found its perfect mate, that of SDGs, and ridiculously questioned whether Zakah finally found its love and the pairing of Zakah and SDGs compatible, akin to match made in heavens.
Yeah.
I left this criticism with my audience to respond if they disagree with this other side of the coin.
Yeah.
As far as my concern, I totally disagree with this opposite view, because I reasonably believe that Zakah can undoubtedly play a very significant role in meeting sustainable development goals related to reduce the rate of poverty and hunger, securing global health and well-being, providing quality education, decent work, and ensuring economic growth and income inequality. I earnestly hope that today's August webinar will act as a platform of acquiring knowledge for all of the participants, and all of us would be benefited from what we have been able to achieve from its outcome. And I look forward to having more international webinars on different issues faced by the Ummah. Again, I thank you all for your all-out support through joining this noble initiative. Please don't forget to place your valuable suggestions and constructive criticisms to the organizers so that by learning from their mistakes, they can improve the quality of their future webinars to make them more beneficial, vibrant, and results-oriented forums for all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us wisdom, vision, capability, and dedication to rise to meet our difficult challenges. Since the Muslim Ummah have been evolved in the language of the glorious Quran as best of the community or Khair Ummah. Last but not the least, I thank you, my honorable audience, for having patiently sat through my chair address, and particularly the guest of honors and all the participants of today's webinar for their valuable suggestions and giving us the way forward. Thank you so much. Thank you. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.
With the final remarks of our honorable chair and thanking you again, I would like to conclude the session here. Thank you very much all again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.